Welcome back to Hardball. An independent candidate leading the field to fill the seat vacated by Maine Senator Olympia Snowe could well become one of the most powerful people in Washington. Right now, Democrats control the U.S. Senate 53-47. But power could shift in November. 7 Democratic-held seats and 3 Republican-held seats are considered toss-ups. And the Cook Political Report puts the GOP chance of picking up enough seats to gain a majority at even. Will enter independent candidate Angus King. If King wins up in Maine, he's got a big lead now. His decision on which party to caucus with could determine which party has power. Welcome, Mr. King. You remind me of Nehru back in the Cold War. You never knew which side he was on, and that worked for India. How do you become, suppose you wanted to remain an independent, and I mean a complete independent. Would you have a seat in the middle aisle and have a chair right there in the aisle between the Democrat side and the Republican side? Have you ever thought of that as a possibility?
Well, this is sort of uncharted territory, Chris, and what I want to do is remain independent as I possibly can, as long as I can. And, you know, there's all this business about caucuses and Senate rules and parliamentary procedure. So it really is something we're going to have to figure out. But to the extent I can just call them as I see them on behalf of the people of Maine, that's the direction I want to go in.
Do you think it should be the case that you have to join one of the 2 major political parties in order to get a committee assignment?
I don't think so. You know, I carry the Constitution around on my iPhone. I've got a great app called the USA Manual. If you read the Constitution, Article 1 talks about Congress. The word caucus doesn't appear anywhere. Neither does the word party. And I don't see how you can necessarily exclude a duly elected United States senator from Maine or anywhere else because they refuse to join one of the other of the party caucuses. I got to tell you, Chris, this is what I think is a big part of the problem with the country is there's more fighting and bickering and blaming and everything else, and the problems of the country, and there are significant ones, just aren't being dealt with. Congress is absolutely not working, and until you make the institution work that the framers gave us to solve our problems, you're never going to get to the solution to the problems. And it didn't always have to be that way.
I'm a student of the Senate. Why don't you do something really remarkable? Why don't you hold on to that independence really as long as you can? In other words, forever. Why don't you go to the United States Senate, hope that you're the 50th vote for either side, and you simply say, if it works out the way you can be the one with the vice president decides things, that you go on and say, look, I'm going to stay here in the Senate, and when I agree with the majority on this issue, I'll be with them. When I don't, I'll be opposed to them. I'm going to be the decisive vote here. And I'll give up all my committee assignments in order to maintain my independence. I'm staying in the middle aisle. I want a seat right in the middle aisle. I refuse to join any caucus. I will not be bought out with a committee assignment. I'm not going to take ranking on any committee or chairmanship. I'll just sit here in the middle and decide all the key votes. Why don't you do that?
That's absolutely an option, and it's one of the options that I'm considering. But on the other hand, Chris, I don't want to go down just to, stand on principle and then be a potted plant. I'm representing the people of Maine, and
yeah, but you can be a decisive vote on everything.
Well, yeah, and if I can be effective on behalf of Maine, if I'm fortunate enough to be sent down there, that's absolutely an option. And I'm going to look at all of those options and look at, the parliamentary rules and whether they can constitutionally deny me a committee.
Okay, let me do some pandering now because it's appropriate pandering. I love Maine. I worked for Senator Muskie for 3 years. I think he's one of the greatest legislators ever. He did clean water, did clean air, he did budget reform. He did so many good things. And there's something about Maine that liked him. What is it about Maine that likes people from the middle, like Bill Cohen, like Olympia Snowe, like Susan Collins, like you? Why does Maine not come down on the automatic sort of Democratic side like current-day New England? But you're somewhere out there in the flinty, down-east attitude of independence and libertarianism, and the fact you guys up there on the Republican side just voted for Ron Paul for president. What is it about Maine?
Well, I think it's cultural and it's practical. I think it goes back, who founded Maine? Fishermen, farmers, foresters, and those are all sort of solitary pursuits. People that worked together, but they didn't have to rely too much on somebody else doing something for them. Flinty is a good word, and it goes back further. You mentioned Senator Muskie, of course, one of the greatest senators of the 20th century, but Margaret Chase Smith, who was a wonderful Republican senator for Maine, but she was always very independent. Nobody knew how she was going to vote until they got to the S's in the alphabet, and she was never a favorite of the good old boys in the caucus.
Who are you voting for president? Who are you voting for president?
I'm going to vote for Obama. I disagree with him on a lot of matters. I've thought a lot about it. But I think given the hand that he was dealt, he's done a pretty good job. And you got to make a choice. And I've never yet been presented with the perfect candidate. So that's the decision I've made.
If you have a sudden evolution overnight and join one of the political parties, please come on Hardball and tell us which one. We're all watching for that. Angus King, the front runner for Senator from Maine.